People forget exactly how much the Ukrainian people have suffered for their long struggle for independence. Voltaire wrote about it a very, very long time ago. As the Russian government fails to make any on-the-ground progress as winter starts to set in, and they continue their campaign of terror through the use of Iranian drones, Russian state TV made a big mistake. They let somebody on the air that isn't a complete sack of shit. The several panelists threw some truth grenades at stunned TV hosts. Look how these angry propagandists pummel the pundit who said they are destroying the infrastructure. Russia is waging a cruel, sadistic war against civilians. He won't be invited back. Let's play the clip. There is 1 month left until winter, until the chill. This is how we're conducting our military operation, including strikes against energy infrastructure. Some in the West say that this is effective. The magazine Economist wrote that our strikes against Ukraine's energy infrastructure are effective and are working. It works in terms of the absence of electricity, but not in the sense of changing their minds or forcing decision makers in Kiev into negotiations. The problem is that international law was violated. The territory of a sovereign nation was violated on February 24th, 2022. Those borders of a sovereign nation that have been violated, those weren't Russian borders, and that's about it. So far, there aren't any signs that anyone is ready to make a deal with Russia about anything whatsoever. What about the piles of would-be intermediaries? A pile of intermediaries is so far just a pile and no more. For Ukraine, territorial concessions are seen not only as impossible, but also unconscionable. If we accept the thesis of Vladimir Putin, that we are one people, perhaps not in the sense of nationalities, since we clearly are different people, but only in the sense that these are former Soviet people. In that instance, it is pointless to anticipate that the people of Ukraine would surrender or demand surrender from their government because they're forced to cook bacon over a candle. These are former Soviet people. Geography aside, these former Soviet people have survived the siege of Leningrad. They are filled with hatred. For them, it is their patriotic war. Oh my God. That is the largest truth grenade I've ever seen allowed on Russian state TV before. You think that this is going to make them quit? These are the people who survived the siege of Leningrad. I mean, more Ukrainian civilians died in World War II than Russian civilians. People forget that. People forget exactly how much the Ukrainian people have suffered for their long struggle for independence. Voltaire wrote about it a very, very long time ago. So the idea that this last-ditch effort the Russians are pulling out of their pocket to just target the electrical infrastructure and make them freeze to death, freeze the nation into submission, that this is going to work, I mean, it's a tall order. It's a tall order to expect. Not to mention, the last thing you're going to be saying to the Ukrainian people that it's going to make them want to join Mother Russia is, hey, if you don't, we'll freeze you. What does that make them think? Oh yes, Russia cares about us. Russia is the motherland that take care of us and cares about us because they bomb us, they freeze us, they attack our electrical infrastructure, they kill us, they stop us from exporting our grain, and they undermine our economy. It isn't going to work. So neither us nor them can be broken. No, they can't be broken. I don't understand what kind of a just world order we could be talking about when we are destroying power plants and the infrastructure in Ukraine. You haven't been here for a while. He saved up some stuff in his soul. He decided to throw a turd onto the field. This is cruelty and sadism, a war against civilians. This is a war against the people. You're forcing me to explain everything that was said in our studio in year for the last 3, 4, 5 years. As a citizen, I'm responsible. But I did not approve the bombing of the Ukrainian power plants. Well, if you didn't approve, we can all go home. Let's pretend we listen to the rest of your manifesto. Do you have anything of substance to say? Well, this is the kind of thing that we do. The way they feel towards us is clearly understandable. Pardoned. I'm amazed at all of this. You're not an expert. You're Shmirikov reincarnate. He crawled out here. Diodensky is a genius. We all understand you wanted to return to television. But I'm afraid you went up against the wrong porch. No one is interested in what you're saying. All of that was discussed and forgotten long ago. For 20 minutes, we're talking about negotiations. What negotiations? The main message of Putin's speech yesterday is that the West is finished. For an hour, he went on about the death of the Western hegemony. Was that an offer to negotiate? He brought up the word negotiate 8 times. What's the difference? He could have said it 20 times. The balance of interest can't be achieved. Without negotiations, even if the West is finished, there are also other parts of the world. How was it all described yesterday? The world after the hegemony. Yesterday, Putin printed the outline of the next world order. That is truly more. That what negotiations? I came to the negotiations and say, this used to be your apartment, now it's not. About the changes, there really are changes, I agree. We traveled the long way. In 2 years, we traveled the long winding road. From deriding the BLM to the president of Burkina Faso. I think he said Burkina Faso, or what did he say? The president of Ghana, acting as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine, before asserting that the world order has changed, that we're on the fairway of the new world, that everything has changed in our favor. The Russian president set very ambitious goals before the Russian armed forces. But to celebrate a victory or say everything changed, nobody is celebrating. You agreed that changes did take place. Then for some reason, you threw in the president of an African nation. As on October 28th, 2022, these changes are not in favor of Russia. God willing, they will be in Russia's favor. And then we'll drink to that. This is very heated. This is much more heated than what Russian state TV usually allows. My camera went out. Well, it is what it is. I don't know what you want me to say. I'll turn it back on. At least I will attempt to turn it back on. There we go. All I can say about this is Russian state TV Russian state TV, just like Fox News, just like any television station like these days, has what they call like a liberal or conservative or whatever punching bag of the other side. Russian state TV does the same thing. But the way that these punching bags work is they stand there, say piss poor statements, and then get the shit beat out of them. If they allow them to say truth bombs like this too often, if they allow them to embarrass their TV hosts to the point where they just have to shut them down and say, please shut up because we're too scared of what you have to say, which is what happened here. He's like, let's just pretend we listened to what you had to say. He literally said it. I mean, he outlined it very clearly that he was afraid of the amount of truth bombs that were being dropped by the guests here. If they bring on people like this who tell the truth too often, then they're going to show up their Russian friends here. They're going to show up their Russian guests, and they're going to make them look like clowns. Clowns on this TV station that's one of the last pillars of support Russia has for the war. As support for the war continues to go down, the majority of Russians now wanting to see immediate negotiations for an end of the conflict, than to just continue on fighting, according to recent domestic polling in Russia. And that's also under the understanding that the majority of Russians are quite scared of even really speaking out against the government. Hope there are no windows nearby? What do you mean? Oh, for that guy to fall out of? Yeah, hope not. Hope not.